Welcome to our Register on Track session for this evening for all students coming in for the agricultural campus starting in the fall. I'm going to do a little bit more of an introduction as we get going, but my name is Jillian, and I'm going to be your host for this evening, and I've got a few people here helping me out, but we'll get into that in a little bit. To start off, I did want to start with a land acknowledgement. So Dalhousie University operates in the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqiyik, and Beskodemogoody people. These sovereign nations hold inherent rights as the original people of these lands, and we each carry collective obligations under the Peace and Friendship Treaties. Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982 recognizes and affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights in Canada. I'd also like to recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki, known as Nova Scotia, for over 400 years. This is me. As I said, my name is Jillian. I use pronouns she and her, and my official title is Student Success and Engagement Advisor. I am here to help you all with course registration and getting settled with university, and there's lots of other people who help do that as well, but that's one of my main roles this time of year. When I'm not at work and doing those things, I'm usually out in the woods. And so you can see a couple pictures of hikes and things that I've done there, and I typically have my Siberian Husky tagging along for those as well. While she's not in the bottom picture, she was on that hike. And I'm also a volunteer with our local ground search and rescue unit in Colchester, Nova Scotia as well. So I work in the Student Success Center. It's essentially your one-stop shop for all of your student supports on the agricultural campus. So the majority of them are affiliated with our unit or they're physically housed with us. So that includes health and wellness, academic supports, which would be my role, accessibility, or academic accommodations. We do help coordinate access to other supports and things as well, and I'll go into that in more detail later on in the presentation there too. So from the academic perspective, in addition to me as a support and a generalist for coming in for academic advising, you do have access to program or faculty specific advising as well, particularly for Faculty of Agriculture students, engineering and veterinary technology. Those programs are a little bit more particular and have program specific needs because they're taking you into a very prescribed professional program that has its own requirements. And so accessing faculty-based supports can be incredibly beneficial within those programs. I can help you with the nitty-gritty of registration, absolutely. But when we start to get into kind of the finer points of those programs, I'll likely refer you to someone if you haven't already reached out to them directly within your program. And also with our Truro Start students, you have your own person for help and support. Certainly, if they're ever on vacation or anything like that, which they do take, then you can reach out to me. We collaborate and talk a lot, so that's perfectly fine, but that's Faculty of Arts, Arts and Social Sciences, Computer Science, and then our rec management students under Faculty of Health and Faculty of Management would have access to Ashley.
Jillian. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Coffin, and I play a few roles on campus, but my main one is the Truro Start Coordinator. And as Jillian mentioned, I also academically advise those students coming into Truro Start specifically for science, arts, as well as recreation management. So if you have any questions on first year classes, happy to help you. Jillian and I talk all the time, so you can go to either one of us. Just a few fun facts about me. I've been teaching line dancing for about 8 years, teach it on campus here. I love going on adventures with my horse to the beach, trails, trail riding shows and clinics, and I have a 2.5-year-old border collie. I also work part-time in residence life, so I'm a Chapman House Dawn. So if you have any residence questions, feel free to throw those in the chat and I'd be happy to help you out.
You will see Ashley lots around our new to Dal activity as a residence house dawn. She's often around for that, but then she usually runs a line dancing class for us as well as part of our orientation program. The other person helping us out here today is Kaylee, so I'll turn it over to Kaylee to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, so I'm Kaylee. I'm your new to DAL ambassador. So I can answer questions about new student registration, about student life, about campus life, and other stuff. And I also help out with the planning of New to DAL, which is our orientation week. Few fun facts about me is that I volunteer at the Cobequid Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. It's really fun, so I know a lot of bird facts, which I will not bore you with. Also through DAL-AC, I was able to fly to England and just hang out with some horses and learn about horses and horse physiology and stuff like that. And on my free time, when I'm not working or going on walks, I like to hang out with my friends and do some arts and crafts.
Awesome. Thank you both. So throughout our chat this evening, we do have access to the Q&A feature. So if you do have any questions, please open up the Q&A question and answer box and type those on in there. You do have the option to submit questions anonymously. If you're more comfortable with that, you just need to hit the option to send it anonymously. And then while I'm chatting, Ashley and Kaylee will be there to answer any questions that you have. And if they do see like a common question that's kind of coming up about something that I'm discussing, they may just kind of pop their screen back on and I can answer the question in the moment. And then we'll also have time for questions at the end as well, where we'll all be able to answer questions out loud. So please feel free to make use of the Q&A piece. I know on my screen I have to hit the 3 little dots in order to access it. So if you're having trouble finding the Q&A box, that might be why. Okay, so our agenda for this evening. So we are going to do a little bit of a welcome, and then essentially we're going to go through the steps for this evening. That you would follow for registration, or if you were looking at the resources on our website, it's broken down in exactly the same way. So it makes it easy to follow along there or to use it as an additional reference after tonight as well. So we'll be going over the things you do before registration, how to find your courses, how to create your schedule, the actual registration part. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll cover some of the supports and things to help you be a successful student and human being during your time at DAL-AC. So just to kind of start us off a little bit, first, welcome. We're really excited that you're going to be joining us in September. It's a lot of fun. As I mentioned, line dancing with Ashley, which is what this image is here from a couple years ago at our orientation programming. But I'd love to hear from you all about, what you're excited about, any challenges that you're anticipating, and like, what are you planning to do to make the most out of your DAL experience? So you can pop those into the chat if you have access to it, which you should, or the Q&A. Thanks, Ashley. Ashley's excited to meet all of our new students, which is awesome. That's always one of my highlights too for new to DAL. I'm just checking the Q&A here too. Yeah, meet new people. We're starting to get some questions coming in about athletics. That's fantastic. Um, and yeah, change in environment and things as well. That's great. New experience is a big part of university life for sure. I know there's a couple questions in there, but I'll leave those for Ashley and Kaylee to have a look at. And then if anything at the end, we'll come back to and things as well. Okay. So before you begin registration, what are the things that you need to do? You are going to have lots of questions, I know, and you'll find a lot of those answers at dal.ca/registration. It's a really great resource for walking you through this whole process. You're going to find everything that we're going to go over in the presentation on this site. You would have linked out from this site in order to register for this webinar and things as well. First year worksheets, and I'm going to go over what those are and how to find them. They're all here. Register on track videos that walk you through these shorter steps so that before you begin finding your courses, all of those pieces can be found here on this website. Really great resource. So we're going to start with the before you begin. So a couple key things for before you begin. One of the big ones is paying that $200 admissions deposit. So that is how you tell the institution that you are planning to come in September, that you're excited, is by confirming that deposit. And then that triggers everything else. It does take about 2 to 3 business days to be processed. So you do want to make sure that you're paying it ahead of time to make sure that everything's in place and you're clear to register when registration opens. The other piece is activating your NetID and your password. So this is your username and your password to access all of Dalhousie systems. So that's your email, the registration portal for Dal Online, the DalU app so you can get connected with other students. All of that is navigated through your NetID and password. So again, really important resource. For that, you will need your banner number or your student ID number in order to set up your NetID, but you can do all of that from password.dal.ca. Once you have your NetID and your password, set up your email and check it regularly. So right now, we are emailing you to your personal email that you would have included on your application. That is going to stop shortly, and we are going to switch to your Dalhousie email. That is the official pathway that we use to communicate with you, and I'm saying we as in like the broader university, your instructors, the RO for updates on scholarships, all of that sort of stuff. It's all done through your Dalhousie email, so it's really important that you check it regularly, or at least set it up to forward to your personal email if that's your preference. Bookmark dal.ca/dates. So information on when registration opens, when classes start, when your breaks are, when you can no longer add courses to your schedule, when fees are due, all of that information can be found at dal.ca/dates. So make note of that page, bookmark it, really handy to have. And the other piece that you should do before you begin is check your registration status. Make sure that you're eligible to register and that the system is going to open for you on the intended date, which would be June 7th. And I'm going to show you how to find all of that and what that looks like as we move through. So I did mention your NetID. So we do have 2 different pieces of ID numbers that you have as a student. Your NetID is your login. Okay, so it's also your email address. It is typically 2 letters of your name and then 6 numbers. I say typically 2 letters because I think we're getting to a point where that's starting to shift a little bit. Just if you have a common name, sometimes that doesn't always hold true, but it'll always be 2 letters and then 6 numbers and then dal.ca for your email. And you can find your NetID by going to password.dal.ca. And as I said, you will need your banner number or your student ID number, or sometimes we do still call it your BOO number, in order to access that. And you can find that number on your acceptance letter. It's usually in the top right-hand corner. And some of you might have a B00 number, so that's how your number starts, which is why we used to call them BOO numbers, but we've switched over now. They're B01 numbers. So many of yours will be B010 and then a series of numbers. So to check your registration status, because you've activated your accounts, you have your net ID and your password, you're going to go to DAL Online, and it's dal.ca/online or dalonline.dal.ca, or anywhere from the DAL website. There's a login option across the top, and then you can select DAL Online from there. Once logged in, you'll go to your student tab or web for students. Then you're going to select registration from the list and then prepare for registration. And you will have to select prepare for registration twice. And that's because we shift over to a new updated version of the system, like it's partially updated in different places. You'll notice it looks a lot prettier from here on. You'll be prompted to select your term. So you're looking at your fall term to start off. And then it's going to come up with a page that looks like this. For the upcoming academic year, you'll notice this is dated from 22-23. Yours will be for 25-26. You should have, at this point, 3 green. There's no holds on your account. Your academic standing's still good because it's, clean slate, brand new. And that your student status permits registration. All of that should be green. And then your time ticket at the bottom will indicate when you're able to register. And that should indicate for June 7th, 2025. And it will be 12 p.m. Okay, so that's just how you double check that you're eligible to register. Okay, next we're going to move on to finding your courses. So if you know you're eligible to register, everything's looking the way that it should, then your next step would be to find your courses. So I do just want to make a note that a lot of what I'm going to go over from here on out is more applicable to our direct from high school new students. So if you are a transfer student who's already gone to another university and then is coming to Dal AC, the registration process itself is really handy, but the finding courses you might find doesn't apply to you as much, in which case I would strongly encourage you to reach out to an academic advisor just to clarify what courses make the most sense for you given your anticipated transfer credits and your future degree goals. You do need to request transfer credits be assessed with DAL. It is not an automatic process, and I would encourage you to start that as soon as possible. If it's a typical course that we see all the time, it tends to go quite smoothly. If it's new, it takes a little bit longer. So I always recommend err on the side of caution and just get that stuff in as soon as possible. You can still register without your transfer credits being formally assessed. It just makes it difficult if you're trying to register for a more advanced course that has prerequisites. So a good example of that is organic chemistry. If you did general chem at your previous institution, but we don't have transfer credits for those, you can't actually register for organic chemistry. And so we have to wait for those transfer credits to come through. So that is why it's really important to talk to an academic advisor, because they can help you navigate all of those pieces. And there are always, alternatives and options given your unique situation, and an academic advisor can help you navigate those. Also, I have a note here that our new to Dal orientation programming, as a transfer student, more than welcome to come out and participate. We tend to have at least one meet and greet that's like specific to transfer students, so you can meet other students as well, but just come out, meet other students, get accustomed to campus. It's a lot of fun. Please come out and join us. So when we're talking about course selection, oftentimes students are wondering about workload, and we use two very similar terms that mean different things. So full course load versus full time. So a full course load for a degree program is typically 15 credit hours, or 5 courses. So assuming that each of those courses is 3 credit hours, which is standard for most degree classes. Okay. For a technology student, it's 5 to 6 courses, and it varies a little bit depending on your program. And so by following a full course load, you're aligning yourself to finish in that traditional time frame for your program. So a 120 credit hour degree, we traditionally think of as being a 4-year program. Our technology diplomas, we traditionally think of as being a 2-year program. So if that timeline is important to you, then you would be looking at full course load. Opposite of that, or not opposite, that's not the right term, alternatively, full-time student is a student who's still considered to be in full-time study, but isn't necessarily going to be in the 5 courses for degree or the 5 to 6 courses for diploma. So they need to be in a minimum of 9 credit hours for a degree, so that's 3 courses, in order to be considered full-time from a degree perspective. And that's both at an institutional level and typically for your student loan as well. But we always recommend that you double check things with your own loan provider and things just to make sure. And for a credit student, or credit for a technology student, sorry, you're looking at 6 to 7 credit hours. And it varies a little bit depending on what your program recommendation is for a technology student. And that's because officially it has to be 60% of your full course load, and that's based on a credit hour. And with diplomas, you're in 2 credit hour, which is typical for a technology course, but sometimes you're in 3 credit hours for some of your courses that are actually taught at the degree level. Again, if you're looking to take a slightly reduced course load but still be a full-time student, really great reason to go talk to an academic advisor. We don't expect you to understand all of this stuff right out of the gate, but you can talk to somebody about what it means in your exact circumstance. But certainly you can take a reduced course load. General rule is you can go down to as few as 3, still be considered full-time, still participate in athletics, clubs, accessing services, living and residence, because you're considered a full-time student, but not necessarily following that full course load of 5 to 6 courses a term. And engineers, you are the exception to the 5 courses a term. You're typically in 6, just as a heads up. Just a little bit more on kind of your degree piece. Some of you may have declared a major already, particularly if you're Bachelor of Science Agriculture. If you're an art student or a science student, you don't declare a major at this point. So you get to explore and figure out what you might want to do before you jump into that. But your major is typically 12 to 14 classes. Varies a little bit depending on the major. And so that's your primary focus within your degree. So animal science, plant science, those are considered majors. Biology, chemistry, economics, actuarial sciences, those are considered majors. English, sociology from an arts perspective. A minor is generally like a secondary, smaller area of focus, and it's typically 6 to 8 classes. Again, it depends on the specific minor. They all vary a little bit as to what you need to take for them. Another option is to do a certificate, which is kind of cool because you actually get a whole separate parchment, so a separate diploma for that, where you don't get that with a major or a minor. You get your one for your degree, but you get a whole separate one for your certificate. They vary wildly. They can be 3 courses. I know it says 3 to 4 here, but some of them actually require more than that. They can be 5 or 6. It really does just depend on the certificate, but that's all outlined for you in the academic calendar. And if it's something that you want to explore, something you can have a discussion with your academic advisor. And it's something to think about, be aware of at this stage in your study, but you don't need to declare it or worry about it at any extreme level at this point. Just have that knowledge in your brain, recognize those terms, that sort of thing. So back to dal.ca/registration, right? This is where I mentioned the first year worksheets. So where you can find some resources for course planning. And you can find them here down and find your courses and then follow the hyperlink. They're also along the side menu here under worksheets. Okay. And once you go to that page, there's then a drop-down menu where all of the programs are listed by faculty. With the exception of the agricultural campus, it does say Faculty of Agriculture, but all of the programs that are housed on this campus are listed here. So that includes engineering. It does include our Truro Start programs as well. I know you're not seeing them in the list right now. That's just where I had to cut it off so it would fit on the PowerPoint presentation. I promise you they're there. So they're all listed there for you, so you can find them under Faculty of Agriculture, which by virtue of starting with an A, we're at the top of the list, so it makes this nice and easy to find. They're all hyperlinked, they're all fillable PDFs that you can find there that give you lots of really great information to help you with course planning. And they look roughly like this. Some of them are a little bit different depending on your program, but they all have sort of the same basic structure. They give you a little bit of information about the academic timetable, the academic calendar, which is not a calendar with like dates and things. It gives you all of the details of your degree requirements. Then it gives you a list of your required courses for both fall and winter. And then there's usually some notes to help guide you through this process, particularly where you have some options. So this worksheet, which I have up, is for the Bachelor of Science Agriculture students, and it's for those majoring in agricultural business or agricultural economics. So you'll see that there's a note here for agricultural economics students. They don't actually need Introduction to Business, MGTA 1004, so they could take an elective instead if they wanted. If they want to take Introduction to Business as that elective course, power to you. If you want to choose something else, that's fine too. There's some information about finding an English course. There's some other information to help you find electives and things as you go further down. All of our contact details are found in the bottom of the page. So my phone number, the new to Dal ac@dal.ca email address, which Kaylee monitors for us. And then if your program is one where we recommend that you connect directly with a program advisor, like the Truro Start students, your program advisor's email is there as well. So Ashley's email is on all of the Truro Start student worksheets. Dr. Parson and Joy Sears, their information is found for vet tech students. That's all there for you. So when you're thinking about your courses, and I talked about electives, which are courses that you get to choose based on your interest, you can start thinking about some of these questions. Like, what subjects are you interested in? What did you enjoy in high school? Does this topic sound cool? Does this course title sound cool? Like what are you feeling that you might be interested in? You can have a chat in the Dal U app and see what other students are interested in taking. You can talk to students like Kaylee who have some more experience at the AC. What did they like? And just, take that information, process it, and see if that might be a good fit for you. Think about what kind of learner you are. Do you like online courses? Would you prefer, to be more in person for your classes? And to a certain degree, you can think a little bit about how you want to structure your day. Do you like your labs in the morning? Do you like them in the afternoon? Sometimes you're going to have choice. Sometimes you're not. And that will depend on how the timetable's built, how early you get to registration sometimes too. So planning early gives you the best odds of, getting those ideal class times, ideal lab times when they're when applicable. But sometimes there might only be one lab that works with your schedule. Engineers, that's often the case in your program. You're pretty pretty fixed in there as to what's going to work for you to fit everything together. But sometimes you end up with choice, and so you do get to think about some of these options, and things are getting more flexible all the time with online courses, which is really great. So that's how you find your course information. So key piece of that being those first year worksheets available at dell.ca/registration. So now that you've determined that you're eligible to register, and you found your courses, your next step is to start creating your schedule. So these are all things that you can be doing now, including creating your schedule. At the end of all of those worksheets, there is a blank schedule that's available to you. This is a fillable PDF, so you don't have to print it off. You can fill it in right on the sheet. It does not have to be pretty fancy. You don't need to record everything that you're going to see on the timetable, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. It's just to help you plan your week and what your class schedule is going to look like, to make sure that you're not trying to be in two places at once, that you have time for breaks, that you have all of your course reference numbers or CRNs recorded at the bottom of the sheet here. And that piece of information, your CRN, is critical. That is how you tell the computer what course, what time for that course offering that you want to take. Okay, and I'm going to show you where to get that information. Okay, so this is a really important piece, and you should be planning this out ahead of time. So for different courses, there are different components of a course. So up to 3. Typically, a course will only have 2 of these. It'll have a lecture and either a lab or a tutorial. It's possible for them to have both, but it's very rare. Typically only happens in computer science and stats courses. So a lecture is what you think of as your typical classroom experience. That's professor-led, typically minimal interaction, depends on the size of your class and your professor's preference. It's usually the largest section of your course. So in a lot of your first year classes, like biology, chemistry, agricultural ecosystems, physics, your entire class is going to be there together in one room. So there could be like 185 of you, let's say, somewhere around there, all in one room in your lecture. Your lab or your laboratory is going to be subsections, right? So you're going to be in smaller groups from that main lecture piece. This is where you do your hands-on learning, and it's all designed to supplement your lecture materials. And it's typically run by a lab instructor on the agricultural campus. So your labs are very much what you would think about from like your chemistry and your biology classes in high school. So those are your dissections, mixing chemicals, bouncing springs around for physics, shooting off lasers, that sort of thing. Those are your labs. A tutorial, again, is a subsection, just like a lab, but they tend to be more discussion-based, problem-solving type scenarios that are based on your lecture content rather than that sort of hands-on tactile piece that you would see in a lab. Sometimes those are run by an instructor. Oftentimes they could also be led by a TA, which is typically a grad student with expertise in that area. So tutorials, you'll see those with your math classes, with your calculus a fair bit. So in order to build your schedule, we recommend that you use the academic timetable. So dell.ca/timetable. And you can get to these through a hyperlink within that PDF document that's your first year worksheet, or you can just type in dell.ca/timetable. You can also get there through your Dell Online, lots of different ways. You are going to look at both your fall and your winter term. Okay, you're going to register for both this summer. I would recommend looking at them at one at a time rather than together. It can get kind of hectic when you're looking at the two terms together. For your location, you can leave it at all. That's my personal preference, but I look at the timetable all the time. Um, Whereas you're going to look at it a little bit less than I do, and it's all new. So if you want it to make it a little bit uh, easier for you, then just selecting Truro Online and Other will help narrow that down for you. So it'll take all of the Halifax-based in-person courses out. So you'll still have anything that's run from Halifax as an online course, or Other being kind of like that hybrid dual delivery combination sort of options, but you won't have the in-person classes. So it does make things a little bit easier to look at. And for Truro Start computer science students, because your computer science classes are actually listed under the subject computer science for Halifax, this makes it much easier to find your sections. So that's your insider tip for computer science. So once you pick a subject, it will then open up a page based on that subject. So the subject that we're looking at right now is agriculture, which is noted by an abbreviated code AGRI, Agri. And then all of your courses will also have a 4-digit number assigned to them. 1,000 level courses are first year courses, 2,000 are second year, 3,000 third year, and so on. If you're in a diploma program, your courses are going to be in the hundreds, but they're going to follow the same structure. So 100s first year class, 200s second year class. Okay. On the academic timetable, you'll find a course title. So Agri 1000 is agricultural ecosystems. That's the course title. And there are those white lines across the top. You can also click on the play button next to the course title, and that's going to take you to the academic calendar and show you a course description. So it's going to tell you a little bit more about that course. So if you're curious as to what that course is actually going to cover because it's required, or if you're trying to narrow down elective courses and want to learn a little bit more about it, that button is really, really helpful for that information. Again, along that white bar, if you keep going down from the course title, you will also find the dates the courses are running, which for all of your fall courses should be September 2nd until December 3rd. Okay, so it tells you when the last day of classes would be. And then there's that piece, remember I mentioned CRNs that are really important. That's that second column here, right at the beginning of the timetable. It's your course reference number or course registration number. It is a unique 5-digit code, and it's unique not only to that course, but to whether it's a lab, a lecture, or a tutorial, and the specific time that that component is being offered. So you'll notice there's 2 different lab options for agri-ecosystems, and they have slightly different times, and therefore slightly different CRNs. You can also see the number of credit hours that a course is valued at. So typically that's going to be 3 credit hours. There are courses that are 6 credit hours. Again, they're fairly rare, particularly for the agricultural campus. And for diploma students, any of those 100 series courses would be 2 credit hours. So you're going to take a mix of 2 and 3 credit hour courses. You'll also get the day of the week that your course is running. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. The weird thing here is that Thursday is noted with an R, so you don't get confused with Tuesday, which is noted with the T. So it'll just give you a letter to show you when a course is being offered. In most cases, typically, you'll see a course offered twice a week for an hour and a half, or 3 times a week for an hour each time. There are exceptions to that rule. vet tech in particular, but for the most part, that's how they run. Occasionally, you'll see a class that's 3 hours all in one day. And then that takes us into time. So the time is in a 24-hour clock. So add 12. So 1 o'clock becomes 1300, 2 o'clock becomes 1400, and so on. So this agri ecosystems would be Monday and Wednesday from 1:05 until 2:25. So they start on the 5 or end on the 25, there to give you that 10-minute break in between every class. So that's your time to get between your classes, and that your classes will never bump directly up against each other. You'll always have that 10-minute gap in order to get from place to place. Next, you'll also see the location. So for agricultural students, if you're looking to take an online course, or not an online, an in-person on-campus class, it should always say agriculture here under location. If you're looking at something that says anything other than agriculture for an in-person class, it's 100 kilometers away and it's too far for you to get to in those 10 minutes. Okay? Shouldn't run into that issue, but just a good thing to double check in case you end up on the wrong page for biology or chemistry or something like that. And then it'll give you the building location, so Agricultural Cox Institute, that's the building, and then the room number, which is 257 or 277. They're right next to each other. And once you build a schedule and like officially register, the system will create a pretty timetable that'll show you where and when you need to be, right? So your blank schedule, you're really just filling in with the course information and the CRN so that you are not double booking yourself. You're planning when you need to be places, not necessarily where. You can also see enrollment information. So the max capacity for that class, so the max capacity for agricultural ecosystems is 100. There's currently 28 students registered in that class, which means there's 72 spots available. So it's 28%. So that's a good thing to double check. If there's 2 lab times that would work for you, if you take the one that has slightly less people enrolled, sometimes that can just prevent you from running into an issue where that lab fills up. Oh, the other piece of information from here is your instructor. So if you're looking to see who your instructor is, that's all at the end there. So you'll notice that Dr. Hammermeister is involved in your labs. So he's your primary lead on your class and your lecture, but he also helps out in the labs, supporting Cynthia Parks, who's the primary for the labs. And these are all hyperlinked. So in most cases, not in all, when you click on that, you can actually get the instructor's email. So if you needed to get a hold of them for any reason, you can find it there. It'll also be available to you once you start classes and things. This would just be if you needed them prior to classes starting or needed to find their email. Occasionally under notes, you will run into an S symbol or an R symbol. R is more common, and that's put in place when there are class restrictions. So the common one that exists on this campus are for labs, particularly chemistry, where there's a whole lab section that is reserved only for engineers. So if you are not an engineer student and you try to register for that, you will get an error message. Okay? And that's done to hold that lab time because it's the only one that works for the engineer's schedule. Okay? So that's something just to watch for when you're going through to make sure that you're actually eligible to register. Or if there's a particular section that you need to register for. And then I just wanted to highlight again the differences in the CRNs. So these are the CRNs here. And I've just kind of made them a little bit bigger so you can see the 2 different lab times for agri ecosystems. They have different CRNs, right? So 10057 and 10058. So depending on which lab time that you would prefer, you're going to use a different CRN, right? And these both differ from the CRN for the lecture. And then I have the tutorial here, which is for the humanities and social sciences class, just so you can see the differences in the color, because the timetable is color coded. So your lectures are kind of a beigey color, your labs are green, and your tutorial is more of a blue. So when you click on that play button, it will take you to course descriptions that look like these. Particularly when you're looking at elective classes, so those courses that you get to take for interest, it's a good idea to double check on the course description to make sure that you're actually eligible to take that class. There are things that are called exclusions, which you're probably not going to run into at this point, but it just means that a course is too similar to one that you've already taken, so you can't get credit for both. Okay, so if you'd already taken soils 201, if you take soils 2000, you've paid twice for a course but only get credit for it once. Not ideal. The key bit that you all are going to want to pay attention to is prerequisites. Okay, so this is the course that you need to take in order to be eligible to take optimization, bovine reproduction, and genetic performance. Okay, this is also a diploma level course. You can tell because it's in the 100 series rather than in the thousands. So you would also see an R for this course on the timetable because it would be restricted, so only diploma or technology students can take these courses. Degree level students would not be eligible to take Animal Science 2005. Okay. So within the academic timetable, underneath that location piece, for an online course, you might see something like synchronous or asynchronous written down. Synchronous means that that class has a scheduled time, the same as it would if you were in person, only you are joining from your computer instead of walking to a classroom. Okay. Asynchronous does not have a scheduled time or day that you need to meet. Materials posted, it's your responsibility to review the materials, meet your deadlines, but it's far more independent and flexible. In a combination class, it's a combination of asynchronous and synchronous delivery. So sometimes you might have scheduled meeting, but then you're going to have things that you're responsible for on your own. So there's a 3000 level philosophy class that runs this way. You've got like a scheduled tutorial for the animal ethics class that you need to meet for, but your lectures and all that material you actually do independently at an asynchronous manner. And your course outline, your syllabus that you're going to get for every single course on your first day of classes will outline this in more information about how something like this would be delivered. Okay. And so this is what it would look like on the academic timetable. So domestic animal behavior, which is an advanced course, so you would be looking at taking this in third year. You can see that combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning options for one of the sections for that class. Introduction to Organic Agriculture, which is a 2000 level course, and if you're comfortable with online learning and interested in organic agriculture, you could take this as an elective in your first year. It's entirely online asynchronous. Okay, so you need to meet your deadlines, make sure you're doing your assignments, but how you do those throughout the week, when that time is, that's entirely up to you. You will also see a number of management courses this year that are hybrid or dual delivery. So you're going to be responsible for doing some things online asynchronously, but you will have an in-person meeting option. So food supply chain management, another elective option, is available Wednesdays 11:35 until 12:55, but then you'll notice like that's not a full 3 hours, it's only an hour and a half. And if you read the note underneath, an hour and a half of scheduled class time and an hour and a half that you would be responsible for covering the lecture material on your own at a time that made sense with your schedule. If you would prefer, you can also do that class entirely online. You don't need to do the in-person component. Just depends on which you would prefer. So I did sort of mention this already, but just something to think about as you're creating your schedule. Think about what time of day you learn best, that you study best. If you're a morning person, putting your classes earlier in the morning, putting your labs early in the morning is probably beneficial to you, right? Some students like to have their classes back to back. They like a more condensed schedule. Others like things more spread out. You may know that about yourself already. You might not. That might be something that you learn about yourself in the fall, and then you can adjust your winter schedule to better accommodate that. Give yourself time for breaks. Make sure you leave time for lunch and dinner, okay, whenever possible. If you are a student who lives on campus and you're unable to go and sit in meal hall for lunch, there are pickup options available to you as well. So you can take your meal to class or whatever. So you're still getting that meal that you've already paid for as an on-campus student. Are you comfortable with online learning? If online learning is not your thing, maybe that's not what you want to do, right? So that might stipulate some of your elective courses that you would choose. As, quiet time, do you want to focus? What would that look like for you? Will you be working? Do you have other commitments, right? This might be a reason why you want to do that reduced course load. We're still being considered a full-time student, but it gives you more time to focus on your athletics, time to focus on work, club activities. There's lots of reasons that students would take a reduced course load. So you will notice on some of those screenshots we had of classes that some students have already registered, right? All of our current returning students were eligible to register in March. And all of the transfer students, this timeline would be what you would follow as well. So if you're a transfer student, you're actually eligible to register right now. Even some of our new students with certain scholarships this year had eligibility to register in mid-May. It was only like 28 students for the agricultural campus, so it wasn't a huge number. Still lots of space in classes. But for most of you, it's going to open up on June 7th. Okay. And it's a good idea to think about some alternative courses, possibly an alternative like lab time and things in case something does end up full before June 7th. That's mostly going to apply to an elective class for most of you, as long as you're ready to go on the Saturday morning. But there might be a couple cases like the English classes, because they have an in-person and an online option. And one of those might fill up faster, and you might have to choose either a different English class or the online option if you want to take that English class. Okay, just depending on where you end up in the queue for registration and how prompt you are for that. So that's the things you need to do before you start, how you find your courses, and how you create your schedule. How do you actually register? So remember that before you register on June 7th, you need to have set up your NetID and password so you can access the system, check your registration via Dell Online, create your schedules, both fall and winter, remember, okay? Especially if you're being funded through student loans, you need to be registered in both terms, otherwise your student loan won't come through, okay? And then you'll end up with holds and late fees and all kinds of stuff that you don't want to deal with. So register for both your fall and your winter, okay? Make sure you record all of those CRNs. That's the information that you need in order to successfully register on registration day on September 7th, okay? Or June 7th is registration, June. So when it actually comes time to registration or to register for classes, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, opens at 12. You're going to log into your Dell Online account, navigate to Web for Students again, exact same pathway that you would have done to check your registration status. Going to select registration again. This time though, you're going to select register for classes. Then you're going to select register for classes again when you pop into the new system. It's going to open in a new tab for you. You're going to select your fall term to start. It's going to bring up a page that looks like this. Okay. Sometimes all three panels won't be open for you, but you can adjust that as you go. I think that's more common if you're a Mac user. So you're going to select Enter CRNs as your option that's highlighted here. That is not the default. Okay, the system will actually open up to the Find Class feature. Don't use that. You've already done all the work and found your classes. You just need to enter the CRNs. Much simpler, much faster. Okay. You're going to be able to use this piece to double check your schedule, make sure that you didn't, write anything down incorrectly in your PDF, that you don't actually have conflicts. And then your summary is kind of like your shopping cart. So you're going to load your classes into there, and they're all going to be grayed out. And then when you hit submit, which will show up in the bottom right-hand corner here, everything will go pretty colors, and confirm that you've registered. So as I mentioned, just again, it's going to default to that Find Class feature. You want to select Enter CRN. Then there will be a blank text box. The text box will only take a 5-digit code. It won't take more characters than that. You can add as many text boxes as you need, and then you can type all of them in and hit Add to Summary. You can add them to summary one by one if you want, or you can just add as many text boxes as you need. This is what your summary is going to look like while all of your classes are pending, so while you're still building your schedule. The action is going to be web registered. You can see your CRN, you'll be able to see the course code, credit hour, the component, so whether it's a lecture or a lab, and then the course title. Okay. Then you're going to hit submit. If you have any issues with registration and they don't turn fun green and they turn a scary red color, it'll tell you errors preventing, and you'll get a pop-up window that'll tell you more about that error. If you don't remember what the error means, take a screenshot of it and email Kaylee or I. We are going to be working that Saturday. We are here to help you through that. So here are some possible error messages that you could get. Maximum hours exceeded. It means that you've tried to register in more than 15 credit hours, more than 5 courses. System won't let you do that. Engineers, sometimes you can run into this problem unintentionally if they haven't set you at the correct amount of credit hours for you. So if you run into that, send Kaylee or I a message. We can get that fixed for you so you can get into that final class. Linked course required is probably one of the more common error messages. So when we talked about those CRNs and them all being different for different times, they're also different for your lab and your lecture. So if you were in a class that has a lab and a lecture, like agri-ecosystems, biology, physics, you're going to have 2 CRNs for that course. And if you put the lecture in without the lab and hit submit, you will get a linked course required error. The system will not allow you to register in a lecture without the lab. It will not allow you to register in a lab without the lecture. Okay, so make sure you have both those CRNs. Level restriction, you might get that if you're a degree student trying to register for a diploma course, anything that would have that R that would give a restriction to a program. That's where you would see that error. Very rare, but you might run into some waitlist issues. Not very common to have waitlists on this campus. Truro Start students, this is going to be something that you're going to encounter a little bit more as you move into 2nd and 3rd year when you transition to Halifax. So if a course is full, then you can make the option to register for a waitlist. Missing required course or grade. So if there's a prerequisite requirement for one of your courses that you missed, this is the error that you would see. Okay. Or your grade hasn't come through, or you didn't meet a minimum grade requirement. So again, science students, some of your upper level courses have minimum grade requirements. It's common for majors like psych and biology. So if you don't have that minimum grade and then you try to register in like 2nd year, you might encounter this error. The other error message that I don't have a screenshot of here is attribute code required. So if you were admitted to your program for a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture without having done pre-calculus in high school, or because it wasn't available or for whatever reason, you cannot register for university level calculus until you have completed a prep course, okay, and until we have a final grade. So if you were in that boat and you attempt to register for math, you will get an attribute error code, okay? And so you just have to wait until you get your grade. Then you can let the registrar's office know, they'll lift that restriction, and then you'll be able to register for calculus, okay? So as I mentioned, sometimes courses do fill up or certain sections of labs, so have a backup in mind. You can record that CRN and make sure you make a note that it's your backup option. Students do adjust their schedules, so this is not set in stone. If you decide, oh, I met a friend and they're in this lab and I, really like them for a lab partner and I can switch my lab time, go ahead. That also means that that space opens up for another student. So if you were in a previously filled section and somebody else wanted that spot, by checking the timetable routinely, you're going to catch things like that to try to adjust and get your ideal schedule if you don't get it right off the go. Waitlists do exist, exceedingly rare for this campus, but potentially you might run into one transitioning to Halifax, which is why I leave it in there for the Truro Start students, just so that it's somewhere in the back of your brain when you go to register as a current student later in the year. You will have multiple years to complete your program. If something doesn't work out this year, we do have options for you to build it in subsequent years. And again, an academic advisor can help you look at that if you're not sure what that would look like for you. Just reach out if you have questions. So this is what your schedule is going to look like after you've confirmed, as in it'll be colored in. Ideally, it doesn't look like this because this actually has conflicts. You can see where German for beginners and differential calculus have overlapped. You don't want to see that, and the system will allow you to do that, right? So you need to double check that you're not booking yourself in conflicting courses. Once you're done your fall, up at the top of the page, you can go to select term, you're going to adjust to the winter and register for your winter classes. Okay. Fun fact, if you're a timetable nerd like me, CRNs for the fall start with a 1, CRNs for the winter start with the number 2. If you get stuck at any point, you need more support, there are also videos within the registration portal that you can watch to help walk you through the registration process. So that is how you register. I am quickly going to run through some supports, and then we'll have some time for a Q&A. So as I mentioned, I work in the Student Success Center, and our office is located in the Dairy Building. Also with security and facilities management, just by coincidence, but that's where you'll find health services. That's where my office is. Accessibility supports and our testing center, if you're an accommodated student, are all found within that space as well. The other main office that doesn't live in that space but is part of our unit would be the Writing Center, but they are housed in the McRae Library, just across the road from us. Okay. And then these are residence buildings down here if you haven't been to campus. And one of our science buildings, the Cox Institute, where you'll have like your chemistry, biology labs. And then Haley Institute is kind of down here, cut off a little bit. Vet techs, animal science students, you'll spend a lot of time down here. Engineers, you'll spend quite a bit of time in the Banting building, not the extension engineering. That has to do with how we heat, nothing to do with the engineering program itself. Name's a little misleading. Other things that are important for you, services and support, financial services. This is where you would get support about your scholarships and bursaries. If you have questions about your award and you haven't heard about scholarships, I know there is a bit of a delay. You can reach out to them, but just be mindful there's going to be a turnaround for them to get back for emails. Most email systems like that at DAL have a bounce back, and they'll tell you what their regular typical response time is. If it's 2 to 3 business days, like mine, or if it's closer to the 7 to 10 days, which isn't uncommon for awards this time of year. So just bear that in mind. And always a good idea, just if you do have an awards offer, but you need to go back and double check about what the requirements are, your GPA, how many courses you need to be in, go back through the letter that you got from the awards office. Oftentimes that detail is there. If you still need clarification, absolutely email them, but always a good idea just to double check that letter first. Registrar's office, transcripts, transfer credits, they help support all of that. They're going to be available to you for course registration support and things as well. They have a live chat at dal.ca/registrar. Phone number, email are there as well. And they support a lot of the services that are available within Dal Online. So letters of enrollment in some cases, you can access the MyCred system within Dal Online and things. That's all supported from the registrar's office. Oops. Academic advising, that is what I do. Ashley is also here to support you, and you have specific program advisors as well. I've already touched on some of the things academic advisors can support you with, but by all means, reach out if you have any questions. Academic accessibility or academic accommodations. So if you have a protected human rights characteristic under Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, or Newfoundland legislation, we can help you put accommodations in place that are designed to reduce or eliminate a barrier that you might be facing so that you have the same opportunity to education as somebody who's not experiencing those barriers. So that could be a religious obligation, a physical disability, mental health, another type of medical diagnosis. You could be a varsity athlete who ends up with a concussion or a hand injury and unable to take notes. All of those things fall under academic accessibility. If you are a student who has an individualized learning plan in high school, chances are you're going to fall under the academic accessibility realm. I'd really encourage you to reach out to Bev to talk about it if you have questions. We do strongly encourage that students get this in place early, even if what you experience is cyclic and it's not an everyday occurrence, to have it there, have it established for when you need it so that you're not dealing with putting these systems in place while in crisis. Really, really important. Student health and wellness, also in the dairy building. That's a picture of our front door there. It does look a little bit different. Those planter boxes are not there anymore. So we have full-time RNs on campus, and then we have a doctor that comes in regularly for clinics. Everything is triaged through our nurses. So if you have any health concerns, reach out to them by phone, by email. Have a look at the website for a little bit more information on services and supports. If, again, you have a medical condition that not usually a problem, or maybe it is, start a file with health services so that they know your history and they can be there to support you when you're further from those family supports or further from your primary healthcare provider. Just a nice resource to have. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't need to have the DSU health plan, the student union health plan in order to access this. It is there for you. It's included in your student fees. Go and see them. Writing center located in the library, one-on-one appointments to help with assignments, dissertations, presentations, internal citations, academic references. Anytime that you are typing, putting pen to paper, Writing Center is there to help. There'll be lots of information about them at New to Dal. So definitely stop in and have a chat with the Writing Center manager, Ashley. She'll be around a fair bit. If you're also interested in any of those management courses, she teaches a lot of those dual delivery options. And she's usually a fun, engaging instructor as well within the Bachelor of the Business and Social Sciences department there. So the next couple services that I'm going to mention are ones that are physically based in Halifax, but that you still have access to. Oftentimes that's virtual, but in some cases they do come up to our campus and then you can have that in-person contact if that's something that is valuable to you. And most of these services will be up for orientation for our new to Dal programming on the Tuesday night for our career or services fair there as well. So you can chat with them then as well. So career services, Caitlin is physically based in Halifax. She loves coming to visit us. She will also talk to a student virtually through Teams at any point during her office hours and things as well. So easy access to her through there, and send an email, get in touch if you have any questions. Studying for Success, again, a virtual support for students. So you can access tutoring. It is a paid service, but you can access tutoring through Studying for Success. They also lead workshops in managing your time, goal setting. They have in-person ones, again, that are based in Halifax, but you're welcome to join all of the virtual ones that are available, which I personally think is nice because then you can join them from your sofa and your bunny slippers, which is sometimes more comfortable, particularly on cold winter nights. You don't have to leave anywhere to go out and join the workshop. Olivia is our 2S LGBTQIA plus advisor. Olivia does frequently come up to campus to visit. She is heavily involved in our DAL Out club as well. Some of our DAL Out students are, of course, participating in our Pride parade there, which is the image in the background, which wouldn't be complete without a wagon and hay. We are the agricultural campus. Olivia has lots of really great services, advocacy, resource navigation, name or gender marker changes within DAL or at a more political level like provincially and beyond. Accessing referrals for gender affirming care, that can all be done through Olivia's office. And you can follow her on Instagram, her handle's there as well. And you can connect with her virtually as well when she's not on campus. Black Student Advising Center. So Matthew should be down for New to Dal and things as well. Again, physically based in Halifax, but you have access to them virtually for advocacy, someone just to talk to, resource navigation, some funding options, and things as well. International student supports. So we do some supports within our office. We help within cultural programming and things, but your immigration advising is all going to come out of Halifax from an international student advisor. I cannot legally give immigration advice in Canada. You can't unless you have the specific credential, which our ISAs in Halifax do. Really great resource if you're an international student coming to DAL and you're looking to navigate the process for your study permit, a co-op work permit, post-grad study permit, any of that sort of thing. That would all be through the ISAs. Zach is intending to come up to campus, I think every 3 weeks is what we're going to be aiming for, starting in the fall. And somebody from that office will also be up for our new to DAL programming as well. But again, you can connect with them virtually. And you can book an appointment directly with them from their website, dal.ca/international, there as well. Your professors, of course, really great resource, especially when it comes to core course content, right? They are delivering the course. They know what their expectations are. They know the material. They are the people to talk to if you have questions, and you can find their contact information in the course outline or the syllabus, and that you'll be given the first day of classes, typically online through our Brightspace system, which is how you'll access all your online courses. I've mentioned this a couple times throughout the presentation. The DAL U app is our university app. You can also access a desktop version. We have specific groups for Halifax and Truro bound students. So I would encourage you all to download the app from the Play Store or from the Apple Store, join that group and connect with other new students who are coming to campus. You can connect with students in your program, outside your program. Kaylee's in that group. If you have any questions, it's a great way to get a hold of her. There's also a few of our students involved in student government who are active in there as well. They would love to hear from you if you've got questions about clubs and getting involved in student governance and all of that sort of thing as well. And we're also going to be sharing our new to DAL schedule within that group in the DAL U app as well. So really recommend that you download that app and get familiar with it and get involved. All right, couple reminders about registration. Opens June 7th at 12 p.m. noon, and that is Atlantic time, so based in Halifax. Okay. You need to make sure that that $200 deposit that I mentioned is paid beforehand, about 2 business days. Okay, what it takes to be processed. Make sure you've activated and set up your account. You have your net ID and your password. Kaylee and I will be available, and I think Ashley's going to join us as well. If you have any questions, we are available from 12 until 4. Please reach out. My office phone number is there, and the email is there that Kaylee and I will monitor. We'll probably also set up a Teams chat, and I'll send that out to all the list of incoming students there before registration day, and you can just pop into that video chat if you have a question, and we can walk you through stuff. Registrar's office is also available to you for the same time frame, 12 to 4, June 7th, and they have a live chat feature, dal.ca/registrar, much faster than if you email or call them. The live chat is fantastic. But if you prefer to call or email, those are options for you as well. So your next steps, stay tuned, follow us on Instagram. There's lots of information for new students at dal.ca/new students, including a checklist to kind of see what your next steps are and things. And yeah, so now I will open it up for more questions, and I do see a few things on the speech bubble there for the Q&A. Are there any questions? Ashley, were there any common questions that kind of came up?
Kayla and I have been nonstop in the chat. It's been awesome. So thank you all so much for your questions. They are all great. They kind of came in kind of really specific to their program. So there wasn't anything really like a lot of students had questions on. But if you wouldn't mind just touching a little bit on, from what you know of, the orientation program.
So the orientation program is still very much a work in progress. Kaylee and I are we're working on it. There's a couple things that we do that are fairly traditional from year to year, so pretty safe that they're going to be there. One of them is our welcome bonfire that's on the Saturday night. So that's usually a big event for us. We are hoping to get a live band and make it a little bit more of a concert, but I don't have that confirmed just yet. So fingers crossed for us. Kaylee and Jenna from DASA are working very diligently to make that happen for us. We will, of course, have our bubble barn, which is our slip and slide, which is a student favorite this year. We cover all of your meal costs. So if you're an off-campus student, make sure you stop in and connect with us. We will cover it so you can eat for the long weekend and come out and participate in activities. We'll do different games and activities so that you can get to know each other in your program, outside of your program. There's important residence information. You'll do residence meetings early on in the weekend there, so you can figure out how House Council works, how you can get involved, how you can meet people, connect, what programming's like in residence. Yeah, orientation. So move-in is the Saturday of the long weekend in September, so Labor Day long weekend in Canada. So that is August 30th would be move-in. And so that's sort of our official day for general orientation programming. We do have some specific content for our international students that starts a little bit earlier so that international students can get to campus a little earlier adjust to the time change, and just kind of get in sync with the hours here from wherever they're coming from, get a little bit more information. Accessibility students also have an additional orientation specific to accessing and using that service that's able at Dal, and that's on the Friday, which is the 29th of August. There is a prep course for physics that should be run out of College of Open Learning as well. So if you follow the link on the first year worksheet for calculus, it should take you to the same page for physics. Sorry, the question is there a prep course available for physics similar to the prep course for calculus? I've got another question. What do IB students need to do for transfer credits? Great question. You do need to request to have transfer credits assessed, even as an IB or an AP student. So if you go to dal.ca/IB or AP, depending on which of those pathways you're coming into, it'll take you specifically to that information there. And there's a form that you submit to have those applied. I've got another question. Does physics, life sciences for biovet need a prep course? I never did it in high school. That is in part a personal choice. We do strongly recommend that if you've never done physics before, that you take a prep course. It's not technically required. I know the language in the course description does read that way. You are certainly welcome to register for the course, attend classes the first week, get a feel for it, talk to the instructor. If it feels like it's not going to work, it's not going to fit, we can adjust. We'll put you in another elective, and then we'll go back and look at alternatives for how you can make up your physics class. Physics doesn't feed into any other courses that you need later in your program for biovet. So while we might recommend that you take it in your first year, if you don't, not the end of the world. So I would say have a chat with an academic advisor more specifically, and we can get into that in a little bit more depth for what would work for you. Oh. Was there a registration question, or you just must have answered that, did you, Ashley?
Yeah, I just answered that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's specific to vet tech. I
Okay.
think just in general, I know people had questions about like what electives to pick and course for specific programs and things like that. And I think the information that you put up there about like how to contact and who to contact was great. And I think that if anybody takes like, a little bit of this little bit of information away, if you have questions, like reach out to Jillian or Kaylee. They'll are like your first stop shop. If you do have a particular program that has like a specific advisor like vet tech engineering or myself, they'll send them over to us. But they are your main points of contact for any of the questions that any of the Q&A had put out there. So if you happen to miss anything, those two are your point of contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to us. That's what we're here for. I know Zoe just put a question about if she's waiting, or if they're waiting for their AP or IB courses, should they register for English? I would say yes, because I like to err on the side of caution and make sure that you have a seat if you don't get the required exam grade for that, and you actually don't get the transfer credit, then at least you have a spot, because English does fill up quickly. It's one of the few exceptions on this campus for courses that just goes right through there. Then you can always drop it and change it later, Zoe. So that's one of those things that you could already have a backup in mind. And then as soon as you get confirmation from transfer credits about your AP course, you can get it changed. Yeah. Someone's got another question. Doesn't matter for my first year elective if I take something completely unrelated to biovet, like guitar history. No, absolutely not. In fact, I would encourage that. Take something completely out there. Doesn't you're planning to do animal science? You don't have to take an animal science course. Take a horticulture class. Take landscape architecture history. Take a business class. That's what electives are for. They're there so that you get to explore other things that you might be interested in. Um, yeah, have fun with them. Absolutely. Interested in guitar history? Have fun. And it's also an online class, super flexible. It's great. There's some really good sustainability classes. There's some human anatomy courses, psych, sociology, uh, all kinds of things. Someone is looking at classes right now, chem and specific. There are two different time slots under the same code. How does that work? And I'm not sure I know what you mean, Ella. Let me see here. Dell.ca timetable. No, I don't want summer. There we go. Um, oh, so the two different time slots here. That is because it's running Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12:35 until 1:25 and running on Wednesdays at 5:35 until 6:25. So that's why it looks like two different time slots, but it's still the same CRN. It's just kind of a weird configuration for the class. Hope that answers your question. Bachelor of Science pre-veterinary studies, who's the academic advisor? You can start with me. Yeah, I'm usually a pretty good start for pre-vet. Students, the worksheet does go into a fair bit of detail about depending on like what vet school you're intending to go to. I'd also encourage you to think about whether or not you'd like to do the Bachelor of Science Agriculture or Bio-Vet. You could decide that right now. You can decide it later too. That's all good too. Um, an elective course, so someone's asking, how do you know what can be an elective again? An elective course is any course that is not required for your program. So anything that's not prescribed. So we tell you you have to take biology and chemistry. We don't tell you that you have to take sustainability 1400. Um, that course can be an elective. I would encourage you to stick to the 1000 level courses, 2000 level courses. In some cases, companion animal behavior, which is a winter offer, which is Animal Science 2003, really popular option. If you like that sort of thing, if that's not your jam, lots and lots of other options too. Yeah, an elective can be anything that's not required for your course. Um, history of guitar, history of landscape architecture if you're not a landscape architecture student. If you do have a couple more questions, feel free. I'll just do another quick second there. Otherwise, please take a moment to scan the QR code with your phone, complete the survey, and you'll get a chance to win $100 that we will put on your DAL card, which is your student ID card, which you can then use to purchase textbooks, or more fun items like hoodies and mugs and anything else from the bookstore. You can also use it at the Barley Cafe, so the cafe on campus, Cox's Cupboard, another cafe on campus. Or if you're an off-campus student and want to buy lunch and go to lunch with your friends, you can use your DAL card there as well. So I'll just leave that up for another minute. And if there's any final questions in there,
If you happen to be in or around the Truro area over the summertime and you haven't seen us, you can feel free to book a tour, a campus tour. I just put it in the webinar chat. They do tours throughout the weekdays, and you get toured by a current student, so you get that student experience firsthand. And we'd love to see you and show you around.
absolutely come and visit us, especially this time of year. Everything's starting to open up. It's really pretty. I know Kaylee's answering the calculus question there. That's great. Yes, if you're in a science program, 9 times out of 10, you need calculus. That's true for biovet. Abby Brooks is asking, what classes allow you to go out with the animals, like the cows? So agri-ecosystems, you will be out in the barn. A lot of your upper year courses, you'll really get a little bit heavier in there. Honestly, like if you want to get out to the barn, my recommendation is to get involved in College Royal in October. Even if you've never shown an animal before, students will teach you how, and you get a lot of hands-on opportunities with the dairy herd. You can also volunteer through the pre-vet society on campus as well if you're keen on getting out there. They do an adopt a cow program. And like within the technology programs, you're going to spend a lot more time first year out in the barn. It's just the nature of the design of the program. First year, the big one would be agri-ecosystems. But you can also just go visit. Just obey the biosecurity rules. Wash your hands. Don't stick them in your mouth after you've touched a cow until you've washed them. You know, basic barn stuff. There's little booties you put on. Barn staff there are lovely. So if you have any questions, let them know. There's lots of upper year students who will be running around. Yeah. Okay. I think that's enough time for everyone to scan. Oh, oh, Tasha, that's a bit broad. What can I expect for environmental sciences? Lots of fun things. Entomology. Bugs are cool. Lots of stuff about pollinators, really broad options for your programs. You can really dive into the chem if you're interested. Yes, absolutely. If you want to get out into the greenhouse, agri-ecosystems, again, that intro course, you'll be in the greenhouse. But a lot of the horticulture courses, so that's HORT for a subject code, you will be out in the greenhouses. Lots. Highly recommend horticulture courses as electives. They're super fun. All right, folks, I am going to wrap everything up there. If you do have any other questions, please email Kaylee or I. Please reach out, and I will be following up with an email to all of you with some of the information that we've covered here as well. And don't forget to check out dal.ca/registration for all the great resources there.